Hey YouTube, it's Dr. Ray and myself, Dr. Marie P from Nursing Dynamics, and we are back at it with another video. And today we're going to talk about financial literacy. So Dr. Ray is the financial literacy guru, and so we are going to allow her today to kind of talk about a few things with financial literacy when it comes to Black nurses. And so we'll get into why Black nurses specifically. But before we go to her, I want to kind of talk about some things that we've seen along the way and that would make you say, well, why is financial literacy important to me as a new nurse, a BIPOC nurse? Why is it important no matter what age or level you are? Because as you know, people come into nursing at different levels, right? So meaning that they come in their early 20s because they come in right out of high school and go to college. Some people, it's a second career. So some of this information, as we say with anything else, take the meat, leave the bones. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. If a shoe don't fit, don't wear it. Or maybe you can give us some tidbits yourself about how you financially plan for such just life circumstances and how to plan for your exit strategies and things like that when it comes to your jobs and just how you manage your money. Now, Dr. Ray brought this topic up because of the fact that we have seen on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram, how people, for one, like to glamorize nursing. Okay, they glamorize nursing without even going into what it is that yielded them the ability to take that trip, to buy that Birkin bag, to buy that Louis Vuitton bag, to buy that Gucci belt. Anybody who knows about these luxury items know that they are a pretty penny. And how many shifts, if you're working in the hospital, do you have to work to get that? Is it really worth it in the end? You know, why are we buying these things? That's up for debate. You know, people will say it's securities. People say, well, I'm making the money. Okay, all that's great. I have a few luxury items that I love, but I shop on Amazon too. We're saying this to say we should not be in a position to live check to check, at least not our entire lives. Sometimes we start off that way, getting into our career path, getting some debt paid off, and you budget and you have to live check to check. That's perfectly okay. But you'll find people 10, 15, 20 years into their career and still literally got to wait till the next, it's Thursday, they get paid on Friday, and they down to ramen noodles because that's all they got. Or they're down to, if a crisis were to happen or emergency were to happen, they don't have the means in order to take care of the situation. It puts them in a crisis situation. I heard Steve Harvey say one time that people with money, when people have money, what is an emergency to one person without the money is a mere inconvenience to the person with the money. So let's take something very, very basic. I go to my car, as we're approaching winter time. I go to my car and I go to start the car and it doesn't start, right? You get it jumped or whatever, you got a neighbor or whatever, but at this point you're already late for work probably. So you got another car sitting over there. If you do, that's great. Then you just get another car, go to work. Okay, we got it. I happen to live in an area in which we don't have a transit system. So there's no buses, no nothing. If you don't have a car, you get an Uber, which can cost you $50, $60, depending on where you're trying to go to. Well, a battery for a car can cost you, depending on what kind of car you got, what kind of battery you're going to get, anywhere from $100 to $300, $400. If I don't have $300, $400 sitting around, and I got to wait till 2 weeks from now to get paid, I don't have transportation for 3 to 4 weeks. Where I can just, in my situation, I can say, okay, let me, it's going to be inconvenient to me today because I'm going to be late for work today. But let me run down here to Batteries Plus, to AutoZone, and get it jumped, get it over there. They're going to change. They're going to, yep, your battery's dead. Put the new battery, and I'm on my way to work. That's the difference in that story. And truth be told, I've been on both ends of that. I've been on the end where I've literally had to go and get the battery, get it changed. I was late for work. Not a big deal. I've also been in a situation where it wasn't a battery, it was more like a starter or something more expensive, where I didn't have transportation for a while. And we up here huddling up in so many cars. So financial literacy is very important because sometimes, we think living check to check is the way to go because that's how our parents lived check to check. It's generational. Just be happy to have a job. Some of us don't generate enough income, or some of us, we make the money, but we spend it on the wrong things. So I'm kind of, going to end it there and let Dr. Ray kind of give us a presentation, an educational brief on financial literacy when it comes to BIPOC nurses. So first I want to ask Dr. Ray, what is it that, for one, made you say, okay, this is a very important topic? Number two, why BIPOC nurses? And then you can carry on with your presentation.
So why is this an important topic? Financial literacy is important regardless of your ethnic background. It is, according to Investopedia, financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. Or simply put, is to make the most of what you have of your finances. And living in the United States, assuming that most of our viewers are in the US, you understand that things cost money. Mm-hmm. And things cost money at different intervals, like you just alluded to, you might have an emergency or such. I'm finding that particularly, I don't want to say young adults, really just adults, period, mm-hmm. don't quite have their finances in order, so that when things arise, they're struggling, or they're taking out lots of debt in order to cover things that, had they just planned better, they wouldn't be making a bad situation worse. Okay, because I think as a collective, most people don't want any more problems than what they already have.
Right.
I for one don't raise my hand for no extra problems. And in terms specifically for BIPOC nurses, is because as someone that is an ethnic minority, I knew the way that I grew up, my family had limited means. Mm-hmm. And because we had such limited means, there was next to no financial literacy because we were just trying to get groceries. So, but even when you have limited means, even to have a degree of financial literacy is still important to even stretch what you have. Mm-hmm. So we're working with what we have. We're playing the hand that we're dealt, not the hand we wish we had. So today I'm going to speak on financial literacy from a very basic, just like the groundwork, okay? Because financial literacy looks different based on your finances, and it's a part of personal finance. Personal finance is personal, but there's some groundwork that I think we all need just to adult with a little less headache. So I'm not going into, various type of asset classes, investments, return. We're just talking about just setting the foundation so you can have a little bit less of a headache just trying to function. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to cover today. And if someone is interested and they want to talk more about other financial instruments, real estate, things like that, you can leave a comment. Maybe we can do a video on that if you're interested. But right now, we're just trying to get through adulting 101. And for me, I became a nurse and I was young, 21 or 22, something like that. So I had very little experience with budgeting and just trying to manage my finances, because now I'm a nurse, I'm making more money than I've ever made. And I'm not talking about, I wasn't making $1 million an hour. It just, I was young. So I'm
still not making $1 million an hour.
Exactly. So I'm not talking about balling out the atmosphere. I'm not glamorizing anything. I'm just saying, as someone that was young, I was a college student, wasn't even working full time. So I wasn't getting a whole lot of money. But now I'm working full time as a nurse. So I'm making more money than at that time I had ever made. And I wasn't doing, I wasn't maximizing my means. So starting out, I want to lay the foundation. One thing that I find that nurses tend to do is live beyond their means. So starting straight out the gate, let's talk about budgeting, income and expenses. So unless you're extremely fortunate, or you have a sugar daddy or something like that, where you don't have no expenses, then great. Again, like Doc said, take the meat, leave the bones. But for most of us that have expenses and income, this is what they need to understand. And when I say income for nurses tend to work multiple jobs, they tend to work overtime. Take that off the table. You need to base your budget around your basic income, meaning if you work 312s, just that. If you work 40 hours a week, whatever that looks like, just base it off of that, not your side gig, your side hustle. You make candles on the side, you braid hair. That's fine if you do. but we're talking about a basic budget. Okay, we're just because doing with the financial literacy component, I'm talking about, we're not talking about working ourselves to death either. We're talking about just the foundation. And when you live below your means, you would be surprised at how much extra you find at the end of the month, but that's another story. So if you work, and give a basic example, 312s, and I'm gonna keep the numbers very simple for simplicity. And let's say you make $1,000 every 2 weeks, okay? Working 36 hours a week. Now, when I say 1,000, I'm talking about after taxes, tags, and fees, after you pay off
About
the
to
family.
say,
Oh,
I'm like, wait a minute, that math ain't mathing. Okay, okay.
I mean, it probably is a low number for most nurses, but also I just wanted, because 1,000 is an easy number to work with. But of course, you adjust this as you see
Mhm.
fit. But 1,000 is a real nice round number to work with, you know.
Like,
So
first, we need another job. That's what we need first. We need another job.
first of all, just
We
say
need another job. But okay, I'm ready now. I got you now. Okay.
so whatever it is you make after you pay Uncle Sam, because we don't want him knocking on our door later telling us we owe him any money. If you pay for health insurance, and that is important to you, you know, you put that in there. If you have any other benefits, parking, you know, anything that's coming out of your check, take all that out. What you have left is your net income. Let's say it's $1,000 every 2 weeks, $2,000 a month. We're keeping the numbers very simple. If it's 10,000, add some zeros, whatever it is, but we're keeping it simple. Okay. And let's say your expenses, for example, are $500, which, you know, that's 50% of your income. Now you have another $500 left over. You need to budget that $500. So you paid your, first of all, I always say pay yourself first. So if you know your expenses are $500, you have $1,000. Personally, I would say my expenses are $600 because I'm going to take a minimum of 10%, and that's for me. So I like to put that into some sort of investing, but bare minimum, you need to have a 6-month emergency fund when you're starting out. So take your expenses. So you have, it's $500 a month times 6 months. So that's $3,000. Every time you get paid, if you haven't already started, you want to take something that's reasonable and start putting it up every time you get paid. Whatever that looks like for you, if it's $100, if it's $200, if it's $500, put it up until you get a minimum of 6 months of your expenses. Now, and I usually just base off your baseline expenses. So if you have a car payment, you know, if you have a mortgage or rent and whatever your average light bill is, etc., put that up. I don't necessarily count any luxury expenses. That's what I call them, such as, you know, maybe Netflix or, you know, getting your hair done or something like that. Because if times are hard, I mean, if that's important to you, then fine. But if times are really hard where, you know, as Doc said, you down to ramen noodles, personally, I'm not thinking about getting my hair and nails done. But if it means that much to you, then you put that in there. But at bare minimum, you want your living expense so you can keep the lights on, keep a roof over your head, and groceries in the refrigerator. Don't have to be lobster, but just something so your stomach is not growling all day. So you want at least 6 months of expenses, and also pay yourself first. Now you look at that and you say, okay, this is my true income after you save your 6 months of expenses and you paid yourself. So now we're down to, let's say, $500 every 2 weeks. So now that's what you have to do whatever it is you're going to do. Another thing that I would suggest is creating another. Now you have an emergency fund. This emergency fund is for, you know, let's say you lose your job, you can't work, you know, you have an injury and you don't have any income coming in. This emergency fund is not for I broke a nail. This emergency fund is not for, oh, the latest XYZ came out. That's not what this is for. This emergency fund is for truly an emergency where you don't have income coming in, or maybe it's between during the times when you have some extra disposable income and you have a true emergency. You know, your car don't start, something along those lines, you know, get a flood in your house or something like that. Also remember that if you have to use your emergency fund, you need to replenish that. So if you have to drain it, you need to next work on building it back up. Minimum of 6 months. If you can do a year, that's even better. Trust me, you'll sleep better at night. Trust me. Minimum 6 months. So then on top of that, if you decide to, now keep in mind, that's off of your base income. That's not your overtime, your side hustles, you're nothing like that. And you want to be able to base your expenses off of just your regular income so that you're not living above your means. And I see that happen a lot of times too. People want, now the whole thing is luxury apartments, or some people want to purchase these expensive new construction homes. And for example, you get paid $1,000 every 2 weeks. You're not saving anything because your rent / mortgage is $999. So now you got to work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep the lights on in your luxury apartment or whatever it is, or pay your car payment for your fancy car, whatever that looks like. And now you're working 2 and 3 jobs just for your expenses. You're living beyond your means. The first time you sneeze wrong, you're going to have a problem, because it's like you're trying to juggle all these balls in the air, and eventually you're going to drop one. And when you're doing that and you're stretching yourself so thin, not only is it going to lead to more burnout because you have to constantly work to keep up that lifestyle, but it's going to put a strain on you financially the first time something go wrong. So keep that in mind. So it's always better to be below your means. So if I make $1,000 every 2 weeks and my expenses are 500, I'm good because I know I have some sort of padding there. Plus, most places you're going to get paid bi-weekly. If it's monthly, then maybe you get, $2,000 per month or whatever. The point is, you do not want your income and your expenses to be equal with just your one basic job. Okay. Not your side hustles, not your everything else. You want all that to be for the extras that you might want to do, whatever that looks like for you. So don't live your life based off of overtime, because I'm telling you, you're going to burn out and you're going to drive yourself into a hole. You're going to be miserable. That should be optional. And if you find yourself in a pinch where you have to do overtime to kind of get above water, that's fine for a certain period of time, but you don't want to live like that all the time where you have to do it. If you choose to do it, it's one thing, but mentally, physically, emotionally, you're going to burn out. Trust me, been there, done that, got a t-shirt. I do, trust me. Another big thing is student loan debt. So I have a lot of students, they go to school, they take out these loans to get higher education, then they come out and they're having issues paying back the debt. And a trend that I'm noticing is that people are signing the debt, the notes, but they don't understand the terms. And I get it. Some of you may be young, maybe, but age really don't have anything to do with it. And you're signing, and I hear people saying, "Oh, they manipulated me, or I was young and I did it." That is void, because it's a moot point. Because at the end of the day, you signed it. You were an adult. And if you signed it, you weren't an adult, then maybe you have a case. But you're an adult who was deemed competent and literate at that time. So it's your responsibility. So before you take, whether it's a car note, a student loan, or mortgage, you need to understand the terms of your debt, credit card debt, any kind of debt, to not only understand your monthly payment, but to understand under what circumstances would this payment change. How much of my payment is going towards principal and interest? I'm seeing loan terms where I reviewed some, actually it was someone I'm precepting. I looked at her note for her loan, and her payment is less than the monthly interest that's accruing. So that means she ain't gonna never get out of debt. She gonna have that forever. I said, you had to increase your payment, because if it's accruing, for example, keep the number simple, $100 a month interest, but your minimum payment is $50, that interest is gonna keep compounding because you're not even paying down the amount of interest that's accumulating for that month. So you haven't even touched the principal, and it's not like it's going to principal. It's just, it's this much. Basically, this is the principal, this is the interest, and this is her payment. Like that's the best way. It's like a 3-layer cake, but it's not even layers. So it's not, the layers aren't even. So your payment is this, but this is the interest, and that's the principal. So you slide the payment in there, and it's not enough to chip away at it. And personally, I'm not a financial planner, advisor, nothing like that. I think that's kind of predatory. But again, these are the kind of things you have to be alert and understand before you sign for debt, for any kind of debt. And if you're okay with those terms and you're okay with them, But you have to understand. So now that I reviewed that with her, maybe a refinance might be an option for her. That's another story. But the point is now she understands why it is that she's been paying her payment every month, but she actually owes more now than she did when she graduated, which when she told me that, it didn't click for me until I read the documents. And I see why, because the interest keeps piling up and she's not paying enough of it down. It's like she's paying just enough, more or less, so they just don't report her to the creditors, but that's the minimum payment listed there. So that's part of financial literacy too, is understanding what you're signing. And America runs on debt.
Mhm.
You know, that's a whole nother conversation. The country itself is in trillions of dollars of debt. So the country runs on debt. So that is something you also need to understand before you sign. But those were the main points that I wanted to drive home. And another thing I want to drive home too is if you're trying to get out of debt, I recommend paying the highest interest debt first. So if you're trying to pay a credit card debt, whatever it looks like for you, but especially credit card debt, that's probably one of the worst kinds of debt you can have. And if you're accruing interest, pay off those high interest debt first, because those are the ones, even if the balance is lower. So let's say you have a $10,000 debt at 2% interest, but you have a $1,000 debt at 20% interest. You might be tempted to pay the $10,000 debt first because it's a bigger debt, but the interest is small. The one that's $1,000, but it's a ridiculous interest rate, that $1,000 going to cost you $5,000 if you don't hurry up and pay it down.
Mhm.
So pay your high interest debt off first. But these are a few things to consider. And just to make a basic budget, all you need is a simple pen and a piece of paper to map out how much money you're making and count up all your bills, all of your what I call your most necessary bills, and figure out how much you're making and how much your bills are, and add some money in there for an emergency fund, and plan out how much every check or every month, however you want to do it, is going to go into an account and to pay those bills versus what you have left over. That's where I would start. When I started, no one taught me that. It may sound basic to some people, but when you're young, you're just starting to adult. You know, my mom would tell me, because she didn't have a lot of financial literacy, and I don't blame her for that. My family had limited means. I did not grow up in a family that had a lot of money. So she taught me what she knew, which was, she would say, save some of your money and don't spend all your money on junk. And she did tell me to pay my bills on time, but that was it. So no one ever taught me, like, you know, you need to look out for how much you make to make a budget. Don't live off of your overtime. I never really lived off of overtime, but I would do it just because I wanted more money. But had I known how to budget my money properly, I wouldn't have needed to do the overtime. Is that what I was doing was I would get paid and I would pay my bills, because my mother taught me, pay your bills on time so you don't mess up your credit. I did know that. So I would pay all my bills, but then I would spend all the rest of the money, all of it. And if I did save anything, it was minimal. You know, it was in comparison to what I would earn. A percentage wise, it may have been 2, 3, 4%. I mean, sometimes I would drain my whole bank account until I got paid again. And for no really good reason, because when I look back on that years ago, I have nothing to show for that. Nothing. A distant memory is all I have. Whereas had I known then what I know now, even if it was just $50 a week, $100, whatever it was that I could comfortably do, I would have invested that money, but I didn't know anything about that. And coming from the BIPOC community, where we often have limited means, we have little to no financial literacy simply because of, you know, the years of oppression and just not having anything. When you finally get a little piece of something, a lot of times you don't know what to do with it. That's why you see people who hit the lottery go broke in a couple years. Like, oh, they won $30 million. And you look 2 years later, they're broke because they had no financial literacy. They did not maximize their means. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't treat yourself or to buy the things you want to buy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that for whatever your life looks like and however you want to adult, to make it, set yourself up financially in a way that you can have as less headache as possible. So, you know, if you find yourself in a pinch at an employer, and because nursing is very cutthroat and it has a high turnover rate. So it's very likely at some point you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're ready to leave a certain job, but you're like, oh, I don't have any money. You know, so you can't just quit when someone does something completely ridiculous.
Right.
You're stuck in a miserable situation. Whereas had you, you know, thought about that a little more thoroughly and had some insight to say, you know, let me save for not only my emergency fund, but in case I got a rollout fund. Cause I do that too. Oh, this is my case. I got rollout money. So I have, maybe not 6 months, maybe 3 months of, maybe I take a month off. And as nursing, typically in most major metros, it's not that hard to find a job.
Right.
Take another 2 months and look for a job.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Well, do you think, so I'm gonna ask you one last question, then I'm gonna kind of wrap it up. Do you think that, is there any financial guru that you tend to follow? So for instance, some people are Dave Ramsey kind of people. I'm more of a Susie Orman kind of person. I really like Susie Orman's principles. There are some things about Dave Ramsey I like. I think he does the snowball method or something like that. But I like Susie Orman better. She's part of the reason why I moved to the county that I live in, is because of the housing situation in terms of, people are house poor. And so they're trying to put their kids through school. They're living in a decent house. Okay. But then they're having to put their kids in private school because of the poor quality education in that city, but the housing was cheaper. So what she said was, move to a county where the housing costs more. So you're already paying for it. You already can afford it because you're paying this much money in tuition per year for your child to go to school. Put your children in a good public school and make the investment in your house, not the education. And that way you have safety, security, financial security, and a good education system for your kids. And that was when she said that, that's all she had to say. So we literally packed up and moved the next county over, where, because she talked about how people, my kids go to a private school, but you living in an RV on the school property because you can't afford nothing else, because you're paying for this private school. Okay, but yet, and then at the end of the day, the kids' school ain't about your retirement. She's someone who's really big into okay, your retirement. It's not about the kids. You set them up for success this method so they can go on and make their own and do their own thing, so to speak. But anyway, I digress. So my question actually was, is there any financial guru that you tend to say, okay, I kind of like his or her principles, and that's someone you recommend that you go follow or whatever for some basic guidance into financial literacy?
That's an excellent question. I actually don't have one that I personally follow. What I've done is, I never had a problem with debt. But if I did, I would do the Dave Ramsey Get Out of Debt. I've looked at some of that material, and I think if you're having problems in debt, I think it's like the baby steps or something.
Baby steps.
I think that's a good one.
First one's $1,000 in an emergency fund. It's his first step.
So I think that's good. But what I don't like about Dave Ramsey is his investing advice. If you're looking to do some actual investing, immediately no, pick somebody else. Susie Orman, I'm not particularly familiar with, but I do agree with the principle of moving to a different area for your kids' school if that's a concern of yours. I did the same. But what I do like is I'm a part of the FIRE community, Financially Independent, Retire Early. So they put out a lot of content around, but that's more so investing and saving. And some of their principles are very extreme. So I'm kind of a part of it in spirit, because some of the stuff I'm just not eating dog food so I can save 10 cents. I'm just not going to do that. But but I do like some of the content that they put out around investing and looking at the different financial markets and things of that nature. But if you have an issue with debt, definitely Dave Ramsey for sure. If you don't have an issue with debt and you're just looking to start investing and budgeting and things like that, the FIRE community does everything from your basic budgeting 101. They have different recommendations on how to build a budget and things like that, all the way up to your more advanced investing strategies, because their goal in that community is to retire early. So some people in that community are in their 30s and they're retired. Now, retired don't mean you sitting at home in a rocking chair. Retire in this sense means that you can live off of your investments in your portfolio. Meaning that if you never wanted to lift another finger to punch another clock again, you don't have to. A lot of them, what happens is, or what I've heard, because I'm not quite there, And so they end up getting bored after maybe a year off. You know, they did their travel, they did whatever they wanted to do. Now they're bored. So then they start like these side hustles, but that's on their time, is what they want to do. So it's really freedom of your time. And
Mhm.
the fact that if you decide at any split second that you don't want to do work again, you just want to literally sit there and watch Netflix for the rest of your natural life, you can do that and still have shelter, food, and lights. And
Mhm.
that's an excellent position to be in, because that's maximizing your options to the utmost. So, and that truly frees you up to do what you feel is most important. There are some books I recommend. So I'm also a member of my local Bogleheads community. So most areas have a Bogleheads club. It's free to join. The Bogleheads books, they have a line of books on investing, retirement, and things like that. Those are really good. A Simple Path to Wealth is another book that I highly recommend for people that's starting out with investing. But if you're just trying to get a basic budget and debt, start off with Dave Ramsey. But once you're out of debt and you're ready to take it up a notch, pick somebody else, not him. His investment advice is terrible.
Okay. All right. So I like to summarize and close by kind of giving 3 words to come to mind as I listen to your presentation on financial literacy. So the 3 words that come to mind are mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Mindset, because of the fact that you have to be able to think at a different level to say, okay, I don't want to live check to check. I want to be comfortable. I personally, as someone who I don't really care to be rich, to be honest with you. I just want to be able to be comfortable, meaning that I want to go to the store and throw the stuff in the cart and not check prices.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, inflation, the milk, like, dang, the milk is $6 a gallon, but at the same time, it still goes in the cart. It's not where I have $100 to spend on food and that $6 milk ain't gonna cut it. We're gonna have to go ahead and get the $3 half a gallon milk. That's all we got.
Mm-hmm.
Or type of thing like that. The other word that comes to mind is discipline. This, as with anything in life that you want to do on the long haul, when it comes to fitness, health, education, in this case, money, you have to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined even when you've lost motivation. So it sounds great. You're like, oh, I'm saving, I'm saving, I'm saving, I'm saving. But then, like you said, that Tesla done came out, whatever. And I actually have enough money to pay for this Tesla for cash,
Mm-hmm.
as an example. And it ain't even that cute of a car. But anyway, I digress. For the ones who like it, they like it. But I'm kind of like, but do I want to spend all that money that I've saved on that? So, or is it really worth it? Once I get it and I get that initial, and the cars depreciate as soon as you drop them off the lot, a new car. So do I really want to do that? So I have to remain disciplined. The last word I drew was priorities, prioritization.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, okay, if I put my mindset and I'm disciplined and I say, what is my end goal in terms of retirement, to purchase a home? Is it financial freedom? Is it to be rich? Is it for generational wealth? What is your end goal in terms of whatever it is, you have to prioritize that in your life. So does that mean you get to take every trip that you want to take, or at least not right now? Or does it mean you find different ways to do those things at something cheaper? Does it mean I go buy a few of the luxury items that I like, but everything's not luxury and I go shop at Amazon the rest of the time? Or as you tell people in the community eating dog food to say 10 cents. Some people I've seen use the same. I saw this, I think I sent you a TikTok on this, where they was using the same bath water. A family of 5 was using the same bath water. I'm like, no, I can go ahead and I can pay the water bill. I ain't trying to save. Now, we're not gonna run the shower water to be sure. You ain't gonna just get in there and stand, But no, we can afford for everybody to take their own bath or shower. I'm not about to use somebody else's nasty shower water or bath water from their stench of the day. So, so those are the 3 words that come to mind to me when I heard your presentation. What do you think about that?
I agree. It definitely is going to take a level of discipline. And again, financial literacy is a catch-all for, talking about personal finance, because just like, for instance, a catch-all could be healthcare, but it encompasses so much. So I'm just touching on just a dot. This is the very bottom foundation of it. And because if you don't have a solid foundation, you can forget about the rest of it. You know, I even have some nurses who, you know, I also have a real estate company. They want to invest in real estate, but you don't even have 6 months of savings. Like no, you need to get your financial solidarity in order first. And again, everyone's financial goal is different. Some people don't want to be rich, and that's fine. But I know what most people don't want. Most people don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. Most people don't want to find themselves in a position where they have some kind of emergency and they got to go take out a loan at 20% to satisfy the emergency. Most people don't want to have to stay in a position in terms of a job or relationship or what that looks like where they are miserable.
Okay, that's another conversation.
Yeah, that's another conversation, but I should say a situation where you're miserable, but you're there because of a financial need or lack thereof. Most people don't want to find themselves in that situation. Even if you don't want to invest and do it, even if you say, I don't never want to retire, I want to work forever. At the very least, most people just don't want to have such a hard time adulting in 2022, where inflation is 8+%, where the economy is rocky at best. And if you're in healthcare, burnout is at an all-time high. So at the very least, you want a peace of mind to say, maybe I just need to take a break. Maybe I need a month off just to clear my mind, go to therapy and relax. But if you paycheck to paycheck and you making $1,000 every 2 weeks and your rent, mortgage, whatever your expenses are $4,000 every 2 weeks, you got a problem. So at the very least, people want to be financially literate enough to just make their lives easier. And then you throw children into the equation. That's a whole nother situation, because that 6 months of these expenses need to include whatever it is their needs are too. So you got children, your grocery bill gonna be a little higher because they gotta eat. I mean, even if you breastfeed, you need a few extra calories for that. You know, you're gonna need diaper money, whatever that looks like for you. So all those things have to be considered. So, you know, I'm just talking about if you're just a single person, you know, that might be the basis, but you also have to add, if you have maybe you're taking care of an elderly family member or something, maybe you need to do a budget for them. Maybe you're the one taking care of your parents' finances because they're at a state where they can't, you know, and you might need to figure out how to budget based on their expenses and the emergency fund and things like that. So, and it's going to require a level of discipline, but the thing is, you can be disciplined now or a mess later. You pick. Because it's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when, unless you just drop dead. I mean, then, okay, maybe you won. But if you plan on living, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Something gonna come up. Something gonna happen. Whether it be your battery, the starter, the car, the house, something going to come up.
COVID, anything.
COVID, right? Oh, yes. And that took some people out in terms of financial too, because they were not prepared for everything shutting down.
Yep. And so it could be anything. Yeah. So, you know, it's not if, it's when. So it's a certain level of preparedness. And, you know, whatever those temporary fixes are that you were thinking about, you know, some trip or some whatever fad or whatever, that stuff can wait, because when the crap hits the fan, it's one of those things where if you don't do it, you're going to wish you had it. So, you know, and even if you're looking at your finances now and it's looking kind of tight, one thing I would suggest is start what I call the elimination budget. What can you start decreasing and eliminating to give yourself a little breathing room so that you can start saving up those expenses? Whatever it looks like, cut off your Netflix. If it means buying cheaper gas, if it means, you know, stop eating out as much, you know, and I'm not saying you never eat out, never ever, but you might need to make those sacrifices temporarily. Right. You know, so it's kind of like you do the sacrifices now so you can have a peace of mind later, you know, so you can start with the elimination budget. And if it's still tight because you've gotten just weighing over your head, then you might have to keep working, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs and 6, 7 days overtime. But at least now you have the mindset of, I'm not going to do this forever. Let me start moving things around differently so that I can clear a path so that I can not have to do this for the rest of my life.
Okay, very good. Great information. So thank you for giving us this great presentation on financial literacy, especially as it impacts us BIPOC nurses. And so I would like to close this out by telling you all to definitely follow us on our other social media outlets, on TikTok, on here on YouTube, watch the other videos, as well as on IG. It's the same handle at Nursing Dynamics. In addition, I haven't mentioned this lately at all. We have an Etsy store. I forgot about that. That we are actually selling merchandise that you can get, and just check it out. I'm just gonna leave it at that. At Nursing Dynamics, same handle. Same handle. I forgot about that. Anyway, Amazon storefront. The icon is in the banner at the top, and you're going to see nursing essentials. So you're gonna see things that we have vetted already to say, okay, these are good items that you could use if you wanted to, kind of brush up on your A&P, or what can I use to study for T's or NCLEX, or just anything in between. As in addition to what else, what other items that we use, personal care items, skincare items, things that we've used, that we have vetted as well, to say that, hey, we think these products are pretty good. Feel free to purchase through our storefront. If not, then that's fine too. But and that's pretty much it. Again, follow us on our social media platforms. And until the next time, you all take care.
Thank you.